Hi, folks. Back with the Dismas Diaries. Jim Clark, I'm your host. And today I've got a special friend, Jeff, friend from Arizona that I used to know out when I lived out there, and I still know. And we're very good friends still. I'm in touch with him on a regular basis. And his story is pretty amazing. He's really turned his life into a positive direction. And I want to talk with him a little bit today about how he's done that, what was the impetus for his doing it. So here's Jeff. Hey, we're back. It's Jeff. Jeff, my friend from Phoenix, Arizona, that I spent a lot of time with when I lived out there. Really close friends, and I think we're really still close friends. I hope we'll always be close
Absolutely.
friends.
Absolutely.
So Jeff is going to here to talk with us about his experiences with the that hinge moment, that time where his life went one way, and how that he experienced that. And Jeff, as we were leading up to this, was telling me there's actually three times in his life where he had those kind of little conversion slash change moments. Why don't you start with the first one?
Hey, well, good afternoon, Jim. Like we talked about, I refer to them as spiritual experiences. That's what it was to me. It was a deep, something felt deep inside myself. I had a lot of problems with drugs and alcohol. And as you know, I've been sober for a while. But drugs landed me in Tent City out here in Arizona. And some of you guys may remember those, some may not. But
Sheriff Joe's Tent City.
yeah, Sheriff Joe's Tent City. I hated it, but it saved my life. I got sentenced to a year in his tents and for drug charges, and I got out on work furlough, so I'd go to work during the day, and I'd have to check back in at night. And I'm a drug addict, so I started smuggling drugs back in with me, and so I'm in jail on drug charges, and I'm taking drugs back in with me, and it was around 1st of January, and I got the whole tent. All 20 of us or 30 of us in this tent are high from the stuff I brought in, and we're all doing the things we do, playing spades and black or I can't remember what dominoes and all this stuff. And it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, Jim. And I was freezing my butt off, and I'm playing cards with the rest of the guys, and all of a sudden I couldn't hear. I went completely deaf, and I'm looking around wondering what's going on, and I'm looking at all these guys and all these mouths going, and all this stuff happening, and all this chaos in this tent in jail at 2 o'clock in the morning or 1 o'clock in the morning. And I looked around, and I said, "This is insane. What am I doing? Here I am in on drug charges, and I'm bringing drugs in, and I'm high in jail. And I had this moment of clarity of the insanity of what was going on in my life, and I was just sick and tired of being this way. And something inside me changed, and I don't know what it is, but there is just a little shift in my thinking and the way what I was doing in my thought patterns. And the next morning, I went into the probation office there in the tents, and told them I needed help, and I wanted to go to AA meetings on the outside, and they wouldn't let me. But from that day forth, that shift inside of me sent me down another path. And to me, God intervened in my life. He
Yeah,
took away my hearing to get my attention. He
right.
threw me in jail to get my attention, all these things to get my attention. But this time it clicked, and from that day forth, I managed to, one day at a time, not pick up or use all the way to
That,
today.
that's so cool. I've talked about trying to explain that phenomenon of seeing the other side of life, the reality of life, being able to step out of where I was and seeing the whole picture, as like sailors who have seen over the horizon. They can never pretend the earth is flat again. Once you've been over the horizon, you can't pretend that it's not a round world. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I feel the same way about having that feeling, I felt that experience of God, where suddenly I realized that God was not only did he exist, but he cared about me personally. I could never unfeel it. I could never
Right.
unfeel it. And I think you're saying the same thing, that your whole worldview changed.
Yeah, I at that moment I didn't know what it was. And at that moment I really didn't care, but I had this change in me, and today I know what it is. Today I understand it was God jumping into my life and shaking me up. But at that moment I didn't know what it was, but I had a new path just from that experience that night.
And what you
And
do
I,
as a result of it,
excuse me?
what did you do as a result of it? Usually that kind of a revolutionary change impels movement or change into the direction of your life. So what was
Yeah,
the
it
change?
from my past, I'd been in and out of AA and stuff, and it drove me towards that path, towards AA, and I white knuckled it for the next 7 months before I was released from jail. But once I got out of jail, I knew where to go and what to do, and I headed there and I started doing it, and I chased after the 12 step programs, and started my path through there.
One of the things that you have told me over the years is that you were big into doing service for other people, making sure that other people had halfway houses and places to go, and
Right.
you were really instrumental in a lot of people's lives that are now sober. And thank you for you passing that on. Would you say that that was some kind of the movement that this recognition of whatever it was that had moved in your life was moving you towards? Was this something that we
Yeah, that moment in Tent City moved me towards finding the fellowship and joining the program and working the steps. The biggest thing that changed my direction was when I was working with a sponsor, and we did we were doing the step work, and we got done with the third step, and he asked me to work on the fourth step, and he said call him when I got it done. And Jim, I'll preface this with I barely knew this guy, and his name was Kurt, and he took me through the steps pretty rapidly, and I got my fourth step done, and I called him up and I said I got it done, and he says, those deep dark secrets you didn't write down. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. He goes, yeah, you do. He goes, I don't care what you do with them, write them down somewhere, write them on the last sheet of paper. You don't even have to tell me them. He goes, just write them down to make sure we do this 100%. So I got off the phone and I knew what he was talking about. And I wrote those down on the back of the notebook, like 200 pages behind. I wrote those things down. I wasn't going to tell anybody. And we met down at the hall, a different hall, not the one we know each other at, but and right there in the room, we sat down to do my fifth step, and I wasn't going to share those with them. And he asked me if I wrote them down, and I told him I did. And he says, that's good. And, he did the magic of what's in the 12 step program. And he shared a little of his experience and his failures and the things he did wrong. And, when he got done making it okay, making me feel comfortable to share those things with, I looked at him and I said, I'm not that bad. And I immediately went right to the back of the book and I shared my deepest, darkest secrets and laid it all out for him and went through, and that at that moment, I knew that the Spirit of God had come into my body because I had, confessed my sins and shared them with another person, and God was present because we asked God to be there at that time. And Jim, I walked out of there floating on air. I was walking 10 feet above the ground, and that weight that held me down to the ground had dropped off. It was like I shed 100 pounds and I was floating. And I experienced an emotional feeling because at that time, that guy saved my life. You know, I look back on it, and that was a pivotal moment in my life where everything changed, and I was a free man because of what another man did for me. You know, and that's where I knew I had to pass this on because it's a program of action, and that's where I sought out when other people needed help. I made sure I was there to help them out, just like he was for me. You know, and shortly, Jim, shortly after that fifth step was done, I mean, like within a couple of weeks, he called me and said he got transferred, and he was transferred out of the state for his work, and I never saw that man again. I never got to
Wow.
thank him.
Well, I'm sure you thanked him the way that he thanked his sponsor, which was
Yeah.
by doing it for other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
You know,
that's really a beautiful thing that you're recounting there is that, and it just relates to the Dismas story perfectly. You know, so that idea of recognizing that I've got to get this stuff out of me. I got to
mm,
get it out of me. Dismas turned to the Lord and said, "You didn't do anything wrong, but I did. Essentially, I'm here for a reason. I was a bad actor, and we talked about this in the podcast before. Is that they call him a good thief? He wasn't good, and he wasn't just a thief. He was a bad dude. He was to be crucified. You had to be really bad." And he turned to Jesus and said, "Jesus, remember me when you get into your kingdom. Please have mercy on me." And that's what we do. We confess all of us confess to the Lord what we did, and then we're amazed that He loves us as much as He does. It
yeah.
really blows us away. And we got to share it. It's like it changed me so that I had to share that with other people.
Yeah. Me as well.
And it becomes part of our lives. I'm not trying out there trying to proselytize. I'm just saying, hey, look at this is what happened to me. Look what a difference it made in my life. Hopefully, it'll make some difference in yours too. That way, I think I'm carrying on what He wants me to do.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. You know, and and I've been sober for a while, and I've I believe in God. And I should say I believed in God, not in Jesus Christ, the Father and the Son. That was too much for me to believe in through my sobriety. And, but I knew there was a God. And I knew there was a God in heaven. And I just never put arms or legs or anything with it. I just knew it was out there. And Jesus Christ always scared me because you got that thick Bible, and I'm going to share how I was back then. I know it to be different today, but back then, to live by Jesus Christ was going to be impossible for me to do. I'm too wild, I'm too crazy. And so I kind of pushed it away and kept it at arm's length and stuff like that. But whenever I prayed, I always say, in your name, Jesus Christ. So I'm playing both sides of the fence. And I got invited to a Christian church one time, and I thought I would go and I'd check it out. And I'm in there, and Jim, they're singing and praising Jesus. And some people go all the way up to the front and they get on their knees, and they're just really into it. You could feel it. It was so thick in there you could cut it with a knife. And I just looked up inside my head, and I said, God, if I'm supposed to be here, just send me a sign. Just something simple. It doesn't have to be anything big. I just need to know. And moments later, this thought came into my mind, and it completely shocked me. I knew this to be true, but I never knew it like this message was sent to me. And that message was the entire planet, the Chinese, the Japanese, the Germans, the Brits, everybody, their calendar revolves around the date of Jesus's death. And it just really, it was like that moment of clarity back there when I was sitting in Tent City, the insanity of me bringing drugs and doing drugs in jail for the charges of being, on drug charges. This was that same moment of clarity, and it scared the shit out of me, you know. And I went, "Oh my God!" And you know, I'm still flustered about it because I still don't feel like I can live up to the, you know, the Jesus way of life. But as it's been explained to me and brought some relief, you know, you've explained some to me, and my brother is also, you know, we just do the best we can. And when we mess up, we ask for forgiveness, you know. And so I'm slowly learning. And this turning point was probably about 5 or 7 years ago, and I'm baby steps towards that direction, but it's still going in that direction. I'm still scared.
Slow progress, not perfection. You know, the
Yeah.
thing for me with the whole idea of accepting another another way of looking at the world and about the Godhead was I when that occurred, that same kind of thing occurred to me. I said to myself, "Wow, how arrogant was I to believe that I knew better than billions and billions of people around the world who believe?" And I'm putting them down for believing. I'm going, which makes more sense? One person arrogantly saying, "No, no, no, I know better," or a billion people going, "Yeah, we believe this is real."
Yeah.
Which one has carries more force? I think I don't have to be that arrogant anymore.
No.
It's
You
kind of
know, and
cool.
yeah, and you know, here, Jim, you know, and who am I to be scared of this? Because over the last 29 years, my life has exploded. You know, and I mean, with friends, with peace, with events in my life, and they all had zero to do with me. You know, this is all, my life has all been provided by God. Everything I am and everything I have, I owe it to God. You know,
Yeah.
and all these things that I look back in my life, and I just look back and I go, wow, has my life really blossomed? You know, and
Well,
I know it's all God.
I've only been privileged enough to know you for like 16 years, but during that 16 years, I've watched you develop and change and grow. And you know, you're just a real good example to me of what it means to be somebody who's progressing in their faith, progressing in their spiritual life, understanding, trying to make sense of where God is asking you to go, or what my higher power or whatever is asking me to do. And I've just watched you, and you say yes all the time. You know, that's
Hmm.
one of the features of the Jeff that I know is that you say yes to everything. You know,
Almost.
pretty much everything. Well, certainly as far as Leslie's concerned, you say yes all the time.
I do. Yes. Yes, I
It's
do.
very
I
true.
try to. I try to, you know what, I say yes quicker to all my friends and everything in AA, and I'm trying to switch it the other way so I'm more yes towards my wife and less yes towards the program. But we know how that goes.
Well, yeah, I was the last person I had on here. This podcast was talking about the strength that his wife has given him and the life that he now has as somebody who is being reinforced. They're both being reinforced by their bond. And I see that happen with you and Leslie too.
Yes. Yeah.
You're a different man with Leslie than you were before Leslie. You're
Yes, sir.
it's a lovely thing for me to behold because Leslie's a sweetheart. I like your wife a lot, and I'm grateful that she's in your life, and I'm grateful that you're in my life.
Yeah, me
It's
as well.
it's been a real joy to be a friend of yours and have friendship from you and to watch you work out this relationship that you're being called to. You feel being called to, not sure where it's going, but you're blindly kind of trying to follow, and I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, blindly, reluctantly. I'm dragging my feet. And I, you know, and I say that in jest, but you know, when I talk about it, it gives me a reminder to kind of pick up my feet and just go with the flow. He hasn't been wrong for over 29 years. I mean, and I'm stubborn and I'm pig-headed. And you know, I see something so good and yet I'm so reluctant. You know, it's funny.
It's the old joke about the guy falling off a cliff and grabbing a branch on the way down and Holden screaming for help, and he hears a voice from above. The voice says, "If you want help, just let go." And he goes, "Is there anybody else up there?" Yeah,
Oh, that's good.
I
Oh,
love
I'm gonna
those
have to remember
stories.
that one.
Yeah, well, it's not
Great
original, that's for
stuff.
sure. But yeah, and I'm grateful that I had. Now, this backstory to this all is for the faithful watchers of the podcast is that Jeff is the very first person I interviewed. Before I even knew what I was doing, I asked Jeff if he would submit to an interview, and he went up to his cabin and what's the town you're in?
Payson?
In Payson. And he sat down in the beautiful sunny day afternoon and interviewed with me. And I had no idea where I was going with it, so I didn't know how to put it together. So I said to Jeff one day recently, I said, "Hey, could we redo that interview because I know better about where I want to go with this?" And Jeff said yes again. He says yes all the time to me, and I'm so grateful that I got you as part of my life, man. You're a great friend, and I'll treasure you always.
Excuse me. Well, you're a great friend as well, Jim, and I love you. And
Every time I have a chance to spend any time at all with Jeff is always a positive opportunity for me. He's so positive towards life in general, and so grateful for the gift that he's been given that he wants to give away to everybody else that he knows. It really is infectious. I think that we got to take real note of the fact that this turn and this change of life is not just for us; it's for the people around us. It's mostly for them. In God's plan, we have an active role to play, and Jeff is taking that role and really playing the card he's dealt. So I hope that I can do the same thing. I hope that we can all learn from that. I just want to tease something that's coming up. I just got noticed the other day that an old friend, another old friend of mine, someone who I taught in an ethics class in university, who's pretty well known. I think you'll know the name as soon as you hear it. Will be on my podcast in a couple of weeks, sometime in the mid to late November. He'll be joining us. So I'll be teasing a little bit of that later on. As soon as I get the details, I'll let you know. But it should be a good bump. You want to make sure that you like and that you subscribe to the channel, so you make sure you get these podcasts when they drop. Be dropping another one next Thursday. In the meantime, have yourselves a great day. God bless. And I hope you do as well as I'm doing today. So enjoy.